All right, controversial topic, but we need to talk about it. Why do GORAs, whites or white passport holders, get paid much more than an Indian passport holder or an Indian? Okay, especially in the Middle East. I don't know about other countries. Middle East, it's very explicit. Okay, right in your face. They are not even shy about it. In fact, even if you look at the ads, they will always say UK US educated. That UK US educated means we want a Gora white skin. I have friends in the HR companies, and it's very explicit. Like one category which they are not shy about is we are looking for an Emirati, or we are looking for a Qatari, or we are looking for an Omani or Bahraini or Saudi national. So over there, each country supports its citizens. And yes, there can be instances where they say we are looking for a Filipina receptionist, or we are looking for, because they know for a fact that a Filipina is very presentable, very petite. Even if she is in her 30s or 40s, she still looks like in her 20s, compared to our Indians whose DNA structure makes them look like aunties by the time they're their 30s and 40s. And yes, given the fact that if you pay 2,000 to a Filipina and 2,000 to an Indian, okay, if they are happy with that style, their 2,000 Filipina would offer you much more value. And this is me personally, being an Indian myself, having interacted with Filipinas and Indians throughout the years, 35 plus years in Dubai, I can tell you for a fact, me, myself personally, and I know so many people would prefer a Filipina, even though intellectually, even though in terms of education, even in terms of qualifications, an Indian would be far superior. If you're talking of looks, presentability, language skills, accent, it is a Filipina hands down. They are even taught grooming right from a very young age, which our Indians lack. Okay, so I'm not saying Indians are inferior. It's just the way they present themselves. Okay, so now like I was telling you, so they have these ads where they mention UK US educated, and that is nothing but we want a Western passport holder. And by Western passport holder doesn't mean Abdullah or Mohammad Iqbal or Ram Kumar, who has just gone to uh, Canada or UK and got their passport and still looks like a Ramu and sounds like a Ramu and talks like one, behaves like one. No, they want white skin, blonde. They want, like, a Scottish should look like Scottish. Scottish shouldn't look like an Arab Syrian or Muslim. And you get what I'm saying. Religion doesn't matter to them anyway. So the question is, one is why the preference? Two is why this big salary is reserved exclusively for Goras or Western passport holders. In fact, in some of the other companies, they will not, for fear of backlash, especially today's social media, they will not mention UK US educated. They will welcome anyone and everyone. Once they get their resumes, they will separate the Western passport holders and Indian passport holders. So let's hit the nail on the head and ask, why do they get paid more? Same job, same position. They have more or less the same experience, more or less the same expertise. Okay. Why? Is it because their education is superior? No, I don't think so. Is it because their personalities are better? No. Today, you have many Indians whose personalities are pretty dynamic. Is it because, and by the way, today you have so many Indians who go and study abroad. They go and study in the best schools and colleges. Okay. Yet a Gora gets paid much more. So, what exactly is the reason? Is it because we are brown and South Indians put oil and yes sir, okay? Is it because of our accent? Like okay, although I don't have a very thick South Indian accent, I still sound Indian. Many people they find it funny, or some say, "Oh, I thought I was watching a Maori, and this is an Indian wannabe Mike Tyson. He sounds like Indian. It's so funny." Fine. So, is it our accent? Is it our education? Is it our background? What is it? Is it because the British ruled India, so the British are superior? which anyway today is not the case. UK's economy has gone to the dogs. So what is it? Is it because Western countries support their citizens? Yes, could be. Unemployment benefits, for, good quality education compared to the education in India. If you're talking of poor, not the creme de la creme. Okay, what is it? See, there are a lot of variables, lots. You can say one is the population itself. For every one white skin, or white Westerner, you have 10,000 Indians. India, today you go even to the moon, you'll get one Indian. Okay. Because Indians are so many. Indians are literally every single place on the planet. You can go to Afghanistan, you can go to Africa, you can go to even Greenland, you can go to the most remote locations in the world. You will find an Indian. Okay. So Indians are everywhere because that 1.3 billion population can't, they can't survive, sustain, and fit in India. There is more Indians than there are jobs. So obviously they spill over. And it's a known fact that you can earn much more in US dollars, in Western currency, than you can earn in Indian rupees. Okay. So that is why people go abroad. So one is there are too many Indians. So there's no shortage of them. But does that justify paying a Gora much more, a white skin much more? Okay, is it this is a very rare, it's like a collector's edition, it's very rare. So where you have 100 Indians, you can have one Gora. It looks like a, black sheet, white dot. Everyone will notice that one. Could it be that? Could it be like how you have in India? If a Gora, or it can even be a Russian female. My WhatsApp group members shared this video. White female, white skin, who looks like a foreigner. Our Indians hound her like a desperate pack of dogs. Okay. Why? Because they live below the poverty line. They've never got to see such a female. They only see in movies. So they will say photo, 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 and they will behave like they've never seen. Like, you have not seen food for many years. Oh, you act like that. Or is it because of social media? The way they show the poorest of the poor, the dirtiest places where they put their hand and they, give you the food with their hand and all that. So is it that? My belief, this is what I have observed after being 35 years in the Middle East or Dubai specifically. It is how you communicate your brand. It is how you present yourself. It is how you talk about yourself. See, let's understand this much. Indians are not uneducated. Indians are fairly educated compared to most other countries. Okay, especially if you see South India. Okay, they say South India, the literacy rate is super high and all that. So Indians are educated. It's not that Indians are not educated. Indians are smart. Indians, in fact, today Indians, they demand big salaries. Yet a Gora, white guy, gets paid more. So it comes down to one is how you market and present your brand. Okay, by this, what do I mean? If you look Indian, you smell like an Indian, you talk like an Indian, you act like an Indian, you think like an Indian, you behave like an Indian, you market yourself like an Indian, obviously you'll get paid like one. I know this sounds very derogatory or very hurtful when I say smell like one, but you know exactly what I mean. Look, whether you admit it or not, whether you accept it or not, go to any country in the world, okay? Go to any country in the world and ask the local person to describe an Indian, or have a look at Indian tourists when they come in. I can tell you this much: you can spot an Indian from a mile away. In fact, these Thai videos have been coming up lately of tourists saying, "Oh, I came to Thailand, to Walking Street, thinking I'm come to Thailand. Well, I didn't know I was coming down to India." And there they show all the Indians. And you can clearly make out an Indian from their mustache to their beard to their hairy carpet, pubic hair that is showing off. And unfortunately, very sorry to say, from their grooming habits, the smell, the behavior. And the behavior is most atrocious, unbelievably bad. So now the question is, do obviously Indians would not behave like this in the corporate setup, okay, especially when they go abroad. But here also, I would tell you that an Indian is very visible from the typical mustache to the beard to the bald patch, and he looks like an uncle, an Indian. And I'm not saying that they smell bad. I'm not saying that they don't know grooming habits. Oh, sure. Some of them would have a Mercedes Benz, some would have a Maybach, some would have expensive cars. But that Indianness, na, is still there. I'll tell you, check any multinational company, Emirates Airlines, or check any one of the top companies in UAE, whether it's Dubai, Etisalat. Etisalat is the phone company, or like I told you, Emirates, or Emar, Nakil, whatever, whichever company you want to check. Okay, even multinational company, Google, Microsoft, Oracle, LG. I've been to those companies. I did conduct training programs when I was there in my younger days. An Indian, even if they are educated abroad, even if they have stayed with the GORAS and tried to adopt their ways or lived for a few years in the West, they still have that. I don't know how to pinpoint the best, but their thinking, their ability, it goes back to their Indian roots. They just cannot change. Unless, of course, you're born and raised in the West. Until that, your Indianness comes out. I don't know whether it's the values, the tradition, the culture. Like, you can get an Indian, for example, let's say you can get an Indian lady. She has really decked up her hair. She has gone to the beauty salon. She looks very presentable. She puts lipstick. She wears real good fashion branded clothing. She wears heels. She's driving a, let's say, expensive car, whatever expensive car. I'm not talking of a Rolls Royce or something. Let's say, for example, she drives a Lexus. Okay. And, obviously the perfume you can smell, her presentability, and still that Indianness. Now, and I'm not saying in a bad way, that will always be there. Okay. And irrespective how much they intermingle with the GORAs, an Indian will be an Indian. So the question now comes, okay, fine, I've identified the problem. So what can they do? Should they put on an accent? No, that's not going to help. Should they try to have all, whites as their friends, Richard and Mark and Melissa and Tommy, and, be with all the GORAs? Would that help? In a way, this might sound shocking, but in a way, if that were the case, yes, it would help, because then they would realize how these whites think, how these whites behave. Like, they can act like your friend and laugh with you and drink a glass of scotch with you, take you to a bar and all that. But once they get into the corporate world, their behavior, mannerisms, everything is so different. See, for example, Sundar Pichai, what's his name, Satya Nadella, and whichever Indian you can talk, they are more than leaders, more than leaders, more than innovators and all that. They are managers, very good managers. They know how to, they have learned the white way of life. They have learned to adopt and adapt to the white culture. Okay. And they carry themselves with class. They carry themselves. See, this guy, Sundar Pichai, looks Indian. Like, you can clearly make out he looks like an Indian typical nerd. He doesn't look like a hot, like a James Bond, Daniel Craig. Even Satya Nadella, okay, fine. He is very classy in that way. Okay. Take, for example, Indra Nooyi. Okay. She looks very Indian. But these are managers. These are managers, and they've learned how to adopt and adapt. They've learned how to juggle. They've learned not to stand out like a sore thumb, like, okay, yes, no, 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 no. They don't make a fool of themselves. They are not only observing other people, They are not only studying the communication style, not the accent, the communication style. They know how to play the game of politics. So one is you have to be around with these goras, be around with these goras to think like a gora. Like if you want to think like a bodybuilder, be with bodybuilders. You want to think like a uh, let's say competitive skateboarder, you need to hang around with them. You want to be a physically fit person, you need to hang around with physically fit people. So that is number one. So that's how you learn their mannerisms, their talking patterns, their lifestyle, the very white kind of life that they live. Okay. The second one is not the accent, but the communication style. How do they communicate themselves? How do they market and sell themselves? You can observe this only by spending time with them. Like when they go to a bar, how do they behave? When they, like, I'll give you a very simple thing, very, very simple thing. When an Indian kid misbehaves, okay, how do the parents discipline them? Versus when a Gora, white, their child misbehaves. For a Gora, for a white skin, if the child misbehaves, go to your room. Just imagine, it's so comedic. Go to your room as a punishment. Okay, you're not getting your allowance. Uh, you know, it's for an Indian when you tell them, what, go to your room is punishment? What? You have a room? It's they find it so funny. But for an Indian kid, if you were misbehaving, they give you with a slipper, they'll give you two slaps, they will use the power of Japad and remove your papad. They, in fact, when you show the Indian slipper, majority of the Indians will understand this is a very powerful weapon to discipline your child, which whites don't have. I'll give you another example. Most of the Indian most of the Indian parents, they are not going to let their daughter uh, stay over at a boy's house, or they are not going to let their daughter bring their boyfriend and go to the room and lock it. This is very common with the whites. They will have their uh, forget the boys bringing the boys to the room. Girls can even bring a boy to the room, and privacy. You have to knock before entering. So fucking crazy, man. So these are the subtle nuances that make whites different. Now, I'm not saying, so, okay, you start doing this, then you'll get. No, I'm just pointing out the differences. And one final bit. If you are like every other Indian, then you become like every other Indian. If you mix around with Indians, you'll think like Indians. If you hang around, like for example, why do you think so many Indians who are there in India, they have access to the internet? Okay, they have access to all the information you have, all the videos that you watch, they watch. Yet that Indianness remains. Why? Because they surround themselves with the Indians. If you have a look at the Indians who have migrated abroad, who live among a different community, their thinking changes. Sometimes their accent slightly changes. Some of them, okay, put a fake one. Your perspective changes about life. When I stayed in Dubai, for me, Dubai was a whole world. But it's only when I started, moving around with different circles and different people and traveling, my horizons change. You speak to someone who has traveled around the world, he will not act like that typical Indian. He will not worship India as, oh, the number one, or BJP is great, or you evolve, you change. So that's another point. When you travel, when you see the world, um, your perspective, the manner in which you market and sell yourself, the way you behave also changes. And I'll give you one final thing. Okay. Our Indians have this tendency where there is two extremes. One is either they will offer their services on a discount. Okay, sir. Like if the guy tells him, okay, everyone, the salary is 10,000, for example, or say $5,000. Okay, the decision maker tells the Indian, Well, there are five people out there. All of them are asking $5,000. Even you're asking. They are much more smarter than you, talented than you, more experience. I would not be surprised if the Indians say, okay, sir, I'll accept a little lesser salary and prove myself to you. Okay, which is what a businessman would want. Okay, are you ready to work for $4,000 instead of five? Majority of the Indians would say yes. Why? Because it's much more than the Indian currency. It's much more than what they would earn in India. It's not that they are cheap. It's they think, okay, my Indian salary is less. Here I can earn a little bit more. I'll have to compromise. But when you're talking of a white, a Gora, if you were to tell him, okay, you can work for less, he wouldn't give a damn. He would be like, I'm earning much more. Yes, I have to pay taxes. That he will not think about, but I'm earning much more in the UK, in the US, in Singapore. Why should I take a lower salary here, even if it's tax free? They might agree for a slight compromise, but majority of them, no, they don't give a damn. And another problem is if an Indian is without a job, the government is not going to support him. If Gora is without a job, he can claim benefits. So the desperation is higher that of an Indian. Now, when you look at the extreme side, there are Indians who suddenly out of the blue, they'll send me, I want a salary which is 10 times more than the salary I'm getting. And I ask them, like, why the hell do you want 10 times? Oh, there are other people, the Goras and all, they get 10 times. I want 10 times more. Yeah, but can you convince me why? Why? And I can assure you this much, majority of them, they cannot tell you why. They themselves don't know why they deserve. So unless you're sure about what makes you stand out, unless you're a total brand, something that you have which others don't have, it can be something creative, it can be something original, it can be, I don't know what. There's no way anyone is going to pay you, what you ask for. Yes, you can ask for the sun, moon, and stars, but what is the value that you're offering? So if I were to conclude, I would just tell you this. Number one is you must mix around with the Gora community to understand how they think, how they act, how they behave, how they sell themselves, how they position themselves. Number two is you must know, like the secret I give, Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai. You must be like that manager who can mesh with everyone, make everyone feel like, he makes us feel comfortable. You need to have those leadership qualities. Number three is you have to know what makes you stand out. If you don't know clearly what makes you stand out, you can't communicate. And remember that Indianness, which is always there in you, as long as it is there and people can sense it, you're not going to climb up. And last but not the least, I mean, yes, you want a higher salary, you need to stand by it. But why should the employer give that to you? So unless you know the answer, he's not going to give you. So remember, you look like an Indian, you talk like an Indian, you smell like an Indian, you act like an Indian, you market yourself like an Indian, and you work like an Indian, you will be paid like an Indian. The work like an Indian is a compliment, by the way. So remember, you will never get a Gora who will work more than 5 days a week or exactly the number of hours. Our Indians work much more harder, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, not 8 hours, much more than that. Yet they get paid less. So it's very obvious. Unless you hold yourself with regard, with respect, with class, and you know how to position, and yes, you have to give results. Until you know how to do all this, you'll never be paid higher. So, anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll just end by telling you this shocking bit. Some of the most racist paymasters, unfortunately, are our Indians themselves. They will treat our Indians themselves like shit and pay shit. So when our Indians do that to Indians themselves, why should anyone else do anything better? Anyway, good, bad, ugly. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is me signing off. You guys take care.